Welcome to Media Melanie Talks TV. I'm Melanie, and today I'm back to talk about a property that many of us are already familiar with, the Dexter franchise. Dexter, Original Sin, the origin story to Dexter, premiered last night on Paramount Plus with Showtime, and I have mixed feelings. I am going to sandwich method this review. I'm going to start out with some things I liked. I'm going to sandwich in the middle some things I didn't like, and then I will end on a positive note. But before I get into that, please make sure you hit that subscribe button so you do not miss any of my videos. Thank you, and I really appreciate it. I would also like to say that the finale of the original Dexter was met with so much criticisms. There are a lot of people who believe that it was maybe one of the worst series finales of all time. I'm here to say I'm not necessarily in that camp. I do think there were some problems with it, particularly with Deb's death, but I didn't mind at the end how he walked off into the lumberjack sunset and the voice in his head went quiet. Just symbolically, I kind of appreciated that because it showed that he was off of this serial killer journey and he was on to something else. Then there was another recent Dexter spinoff called Dexter New Blood, which focused on Dexter and his son Harrison. What I appreciate about this new Dexter prequel is that they tied it back together to the ending of New Blood. All of us believed that Dexter was dead. The end of that episode called Sins of the Father, Harrison shot Dexter. And I think many of us believed that Dexter was dead. When they announced that there was going to be the Dexter Resurrection spinoff, I'm like, wait a minute. So we now have confirmation that in fact he was revived, and this origin story is kind of his life flashing before him. And that's where things pick up with this prequel. I will say that when I first heard the announcement there was going to be this origin story, I asked myself why. In fact, I did put out a short video saying, seriously, what story is there left to tell? What more can we learn about Dexter? By all counts, a lot of his origin story and the lore of Dexter as a serial killer was covered in the original series. We got glimpses into his childhood. We had the flashbacks of Harry. So why are they even making this show? I've got to think it has something to do with Dexter being one of the most successful series for Showtime. And of course, they want to make more money, right? I mean, it makes sense. But do we actually need this series? First, let me start by saying some things I think that were done very well, starting with the fact that it was tied in, as I mentioned, to Dexter New Blood. I think that was a really smart way to kick things off. The casting of this is incredible. From the start, even though I was questioning why are they doing this, the strong casting is really what drew me in to actually want to watch this. I'm seeing Sarah Michelle Gellar, Patrick Dempsey, Christian Slater. These are some pretty big names, and really I think they needed big names to draw people in, because otherwise it's all, why should I actually watch this? The casting was done by John Papsidera, who is known for casting many phenomenal TV shows, including Yellowstone, and I think he hit the nail on the head with the casting here, particularly Patrick Gibson. I did not watch him in Shadow and Bone, although I've heard that is a very well-loved show. However, I did watch him in the OA on Netflix, which is an incredible series that unfortunately did not get the ending it deserved, but it is still very much worth the watch, and I cannot recommend that you watch that show enough, especially if you like Patrick Gibson from Shadow and Bone and now in Dexter. Do not miss the OA. So I am fully on board with Patrick Gibson as Dexter. I think he captures the mannerisms well. I think he captures the looks well. Very strong casting choice. I do think he can carry the show and this character, but what I'm really the most worried about is the lore. Are we going to get enough original lore to make this really worthwhile? So far, we're not getting that, but we are getting some really strong characters. Again, Patrick Gibson as Dexter, phenomenal. Christian Slater as Harry. He brings a new feel to the role. I do think the original Harry was maybe a little bit more reserved. This one with Christian Slater does seem to be a little bit more outgoing, very well liked. So I'm interested to see what he brings to the character of Harry as Dexter's advisor for creating this code for serial killing. I would also like to say the casting choice for Masuka. Could you have come up with more of a clone of that character? From the giggle to the mannerisms, just top notch. It's almost like I'm watching the original Dexter and Masuka. Really strong job with that choice. Same with Batista. From the wardrobe with him wearing that hat to the way that he speaks, his mannerisms. I just can't get over how great the casting is. Molly Brown as Deb. I did not love Deborah Morgan in the original Dexter. I did not love the manner in which she died and some of her storylines. Not my favorite character, but I do think that Molly Brown is capturing the essence of Deb to a T. So overall, from a casting standpoint, awesome. I do notice Sarah Michelle Gellar is billed as a special guest star. I looked on IMDb and it does show she's in all 10 episodes. So I'm wondering, is this going to be a one-season arc for her? For me, the show needs Sarah Michelle Gellar. We need as many big names as we can get. Another thing the series does well is enlisting Michael C. Hall not only as an executive producer, but as the voice in the head of Dexter Morgan. I do think that lends a little more authenticity to this series, and it ties in the original Dexter very nicely as this 1-2 punch with the original voice of Dexter Morgan, along with the new character playing him, Patrick Gibson. It works. In terms of casting that I didn't love, Patrick Dempsey. I love Patrick Dempsey as an actor. He is McDreamy. He has been in a number of movies that I've enjoyed. Something about his character is just falling flat for me. He's unlikable. I did not appreciate his off-color menopause comment, even for it being in the 90s when, maybe those sort of comments were more accepted. Something about it just didn't feel right to me. I don't love his character. I never thought I would hear myself saying I did not like Patrick Dempsey in a certain role, and he's a big name. He's drawing in a lot of people to this show. But if we're comparing him to Christian Slater, to Sarah Michelle Gellar, to some of these other characters here, I don't know. He's just not doing it for me. The why of all of this. I'm just going to keep coming back to that. Why are they doing this show? And also, why didn't they give us a 2-episode premiere? In many cases, I think a standalone is fine, but here I was left wanting more to kind of get a peek into what this season is going to look like. I think it would have been more successful with 2 episodes, so we can really see if they are in fact setting the table for a satisfying season meal here with the origin story. Again, we've seen so much of Dexter's backstory already, from his childhood to the flashbacks with Harry. Do we need more? Something new that we did get was we learned Harry had a son who tragically died in a pool when he was watching a football game, drinking some beer. So that's something we did not get from the prior episodes, although I'm not exactly sure how that is going to tie in, how it fits into the story, and if it's even necessary. Are they just going to throw us some random tidbits that we were not aware of before just to give us something for the point of giving us something new and different? I hope not, because we should not be leaning into extraneous things that really don't matter. I want more, and I want some lore that we are not familiar with. But it seems like they are going hard into things we're already aware of, establishing the code, the relationship between Dexter and Harry. We did see his first kill, which I also felt was a little bit rushed. I thought maybe they could spread that out over the first 2 episodes for more of a momentum build, and then a payoff and relief and release for Dexter after he did accomplish that first death. We've seen these storylines before, the nurses who kill their patients. That was nothing groundbreaking, and it did feel like it came on pretty suddenly for Dexter to put these pieces together, to get his methodology intact with the plastic. And I guess he was smart in terms of the way he disposed of the body in the Alligator Alley area, because that would leave very little remains to be found. So I'm imagining we will eventually get Dexter, as he ages, getting the boat, and then defining a more specific protocol, a safer protocol for the disposal of the bodies that he is indeed killing. Another thing I was kind of surprised at is there's a job fair. He's just gonna go look at some crime scene pictures. And first of all, Are they supposed to be displaying crime scene pictures at a job fair? Is that something they should be doing for open cases? Not really sure about that. I'll suspend my disbelief, fine. But also, a young Dexter Morgan who is not even in his internship phase quite yet is just gonna look at these photos and be like, oh yeah, those are definitely from the same killer. That seemed a little bit far-fetched and reaching for me. I would expect for his relationship to the blood and the blood spatter to come more gradually as he's educated through his job. For just a lay person, even though he is good at science, yes, he's going to medical school. For me, that takes a little bit more of a trained eye, so I was surprised to see him just calling out the blood spatter. Of course, they are using this as a device to set up the fact that he will be a blood spatter analyst at some point in his career, but it seemed just a little bit too soon and too convenient for me. One small little missed opportunity, being that this is in the 90s, I wanted more hot 90s tracks, more of a solid 90s soundtrack that's creating the essence and the atmosphere of the 90s. 90s music will forever live in my heart as one of my favorite decades of music. I was a teenager in the 90s. I loved all of that music. I think they could have infused in some more hits to create this 90s atmosphere. So, small missed opportunity. I mean, I'm not going to mark them down for it or anything, but I think the music choice could have definitely been stronger. Now that I've gone through the majority of criticisms for the show, I'm going to go back into some things I liked. As I mentioned, the sandwich method. If you're not familiar with that, you talk about the good things, you squeeze the bad things in the middle, and then you end on a good note. I never like to just come and completely trash something. So, sandwich method it is. I appreciated the comment about cats as nature's serial killers. I am a relatively new cat owner. I've always had dogs, but I love my cat. I love it when people talk about cats. I'm not at the point in my cat career yet where I'm out there buying cat sweatshirts and cat decor for my home, but little cat comments like that, they're the serial killers of nature. I don't know, it just made me giggle and I liked it. I also think the Alligator Alley body disposal worked pretty well. I liked the visual of the body getting eaten up by the alligator. I thought it was smart starting Dexter taking trophies. Of course, we saw Nurse Mary with her trophies, the obituaries that she collected into a scrapbook. So one thing I am interested to see is the evolution of his trophy taking, from earrings here with his first kill to what we eventually know will be slides of blood. And I've got to imagine that will come more as he gets into his career as a blood spatter analyst. I forgot how little money people made back in the 90s. Dexter's making $4.25 an hour as an intern. And I guess in one way he's lucky he's getting paid because back then paid internships were all over the place. It's always funny to hear references to these small amounts of money because obviously in today's society, minimum wage is quite a lot higher. People are making a lot more money. So that was one clue that really set the tone for this 90s atmosphere, which I do think they could have maybe infused a little bit more 90s vibes into the mix. But again, I'm not going to mark them down for that. Another interesting discussion point about this is I'm wondering if this could be an entry point for new fans to the Dexter franchise. Could there be people watching this who've never watched Dexter before? And this is a logical way for them to start. I know with Star Wars, I know some people who are not into Star Wars and then started chronologically from the beginning versus starting from the original movies. I watched it with my son and husband, and my son loved this. Granted, he's about 13 years old and maybe not the best critic, but he loved it. Could we be breeding a new generation of Dexter enthusiasts? I definitely think it's possible. I was on Twitter X the other day saying that I watched Better Call Saul before I watched Breaking Bad. And yes, it's not necessarily an origin story where we were getting the lore on Walter White necessarily, more of a spinoff. But I do think there are viewers out there who watch things in different orders and who are willing to give new things a shot. Obviously, the Dexter franchise has been highly successful for Showtime and now Paramount Plus. Maybe this is a smart move because they're creating a whole new generation of Dexter viewers. For the fans of Patrick Gibson, as I mentioned, for people who've loved the OA, loved Shadow and Bone, maybe this is their entry point. Maybe they never watched Dexter before, but they're coming for Patrick Gibson. That's also possible. So that is a trend I'm really interested to see as we navigate this first season of Dexter Original Sin. I'm curious to see what returning viewers think, but I'm also curious to see if there are brand new fans of the franchise that emerge because of this. And if so, that is a really smart move for Showtime to bring this back when a lot of us were questioning why? Will this give us enough original lore to tell a different story we are already highly familiar with? I definitely have my doubts, and I'm interested to see how this goes. Very excited to watch next week. I'm wondering, is he going to kill one person each week? I think that would make sense given that we did see his first kill already in the first episode. As I said, I do think it would have worked if they had maybe dragged that out a little bit longer amongst the first 2 episodes to give more depth and more planning and more strategy to Dexter and his dark passenger, but at the same time, maybe getting into it so fast also shows the mindset and how fast Dexter is actually spiraling into this need for killing. We did see him telling Harry the hunting wasn't doing it for him anymore. Of course, then Harry had the whole heart attack situation, which led to Dexter meeting Nurse Mary and being able to successfully carry out his first killing. What I would really like to know from all of you is, what did you think? Obviously, if you're watching this video, you probably watched the first episode. If not, I don't know. I'm not giving you a ton of reasons to go ahead and watch it, but I do think there's enough there where we should be giving it a try. If you did watch it, what do you think? Do you think this is an unpurposeful origin story that is completely unnecessary, or do you think there will be some meat on the bone that will give us a new appreciation of Dexter? For me, it's definitely to be determined, but I will be back next week to cover episode 2. So be sure you hit that subscribe button, go ahead and like this video, and please drop a comment and let me know what you think. I really appreciate you watching, and if you're into other dark shows, don't miss my coverage of Silo on Apple TV+. That's another dark one in a different type of way. It is post-apocalyptic, it is very dystopian, not as much of the serial killer vibe, but if you skew dark, you might want to check out Silo, and then of course, check out my coverage. Got some other shows coming up soon, including Severance, which is coming in January. I cannot wait to be covering The White Lotus on HBO Max come February. There's a lot of great TV coming in 2025, and I'm just so here for it. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you again next time. Media Melanie, clicking off.